Drew Allar, Penn State. Wow, what a chance for Penn State to prove themselves to the whole country as they have the opportunity to beat Ohio State this Saturday in their matchup. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about the matchup between Penn State and Ohio State. With the emergence of Drew Allar at the quarterback position for Penn State, they have a chance to dethrone Ohio State this upcoming Saturday. Penn State head coach James Franklin will certainly get his signature win if they end up beating Ohio State at their place. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. Will Drew Allar elevate Penn State to an upset victory against Ohio State? As much as I want to see different teams make the college football playoff, I don't see Penn State being able to beat Ohio State this Saturday because of the fact that Ohio State is one of the best teams in the country. Now, is Ohio State struggling for their standards? Yeah, they're only the number 3 ranked team in the country. They've won every game that they're supposed to on the schedule. And when you watch Ohio State play, yeah, you might be a little bit disappointed in Kyle McCord, but he's been getting better and better each and every week. They got Marvin Harrison Jr., a really good receiver. Their offense is still good. It's just not dominant compared to previous years. Defensively, they could use some work, but they're getting better in that department as well. I mean, you guys remember how they stepped up big time against Notre Dame on the road? Yeah, I remember that. So when you look at Ohio State, they're still a very good team. I expect Ohio State to make the college football playoff this year. They're still a good football team. I like the way how Ohio State's been playing. They were a team that I picked to make the college football playoff before the season started. I still stand by that take because when you watch Ohio State play, they are as dominant as anybody offensively. They can pour it on you, and yeah, they might not be able to score 50 points like they once were, but Ohio State is still a team that's still going to score a lot of points, and they're going to play solid defense. I'm not going to say their defense has been fantastic, but their defense has been good enough. Now, on the other side, when you look at Penn State, you got to be impressed with sophomore quarterback Drew Allar. I mean, the dude is playing like a veteran quarterback. He has been so poised in the pocket, and I want to give a shout out to Penn State's offensive line because of the fact that Penn State's offensive line has done a great job protecting Drew Allar. I mean, they only allowed 4 sacks 6 weeks into the season. Congratulations to our O-line. You can tell their O-line coaches put those guys in work during practice. I've been really impressed with their O-line. They've been able to run the football pretty effectively as well. I know the passing game isn't necessarily great, but when you have Drew Allar, a guy that hasn't thrown an interception 6 weeks into the season, very, very impressive. When you watch Drew Allar play, he plays with so much poise. He plays with a lot of swagger. He plays with a lot of confidence. Here's the thing with Drew Allar. He doesn't play arrogant, but he plays with such a confidence that you know that, hey, he's got this thing. It's very easy to forget that Drew Allar is a first-time starter. When you watch Drew Allar play, you're thinking in your mind, man, this guy really knows the playbook. He really knows when guys are going to get open. He understands that, hey, I got to be able to make the plays down the field in order to open everything else up in the short game. And there's a huge difference between Drew Allar and Sean Clifford. I remember when Penn State had Sean Clifford for a million years, basically, Sean Clifford could not push the ball down the field. Well, Drew Allar could absolutely do that. When you watch Sean Clifford play in previous years, you just knew that he wasn't good enough to play against the good teams like Ohio State, like Michigan, and that's why Penn State was falling short in those years. But when you look at Penn State right now, you have to feel really good about their offense. The defense has been pretty good as well. Obviously, you can't count out James Franklin. He's a really good coach as well. When you look at Penn State's schedule, they've got number 3 ranked Ohio State at their place, and that's going to be a tough game, obviously. I got Ohio State winning that one, but who knows? If Penn State wins that game, maybe they go on a run because they play Indiana at home. That should be a win. Then they get to play at Maryland. That should be a win as well. Then they play against Michigan. They're number 2 ranked in the country right now. That's going to be a tough game, although they do get at their place, so maybe they could use the home field advantage that they're going to be getting for that game in order to create some problems for Michigan. That's going to be a really good game. Let's see what happens. And then they play Rutgers at home. That should be a win. And then they get to play at Michigan State, which right now is in turmoil as a program. Their football team is a disaster right now, and with their interim head coach, it just looks like things are not going to be getting any better. When you look at the schedule of Penn State, this team is only going to lose 2 games at maximum because they're going to beat Indiana, they're going to beat Maryland, they're going to beat Rutgers, and they're going to beat Michigan State. One thing that Penn State does a good job of doing is winning the games that they're supposed to be winning. However, when you look at Penn State in the past, they just don't ever win the big games. They don't ever get past Ohio State. They don't get past Michigan more often than not. And let's see if Penn State changes that narrative this year because they got a better quarterback, because of the fact that they can run the football, because of the fact that their defense has been getting better and better each and every week. You look at the running game for Penn State. They've got Xtra, they've got Nicholas Singleton, they got Trey Potts. And then, of course, they also use a Wildcat QB and Buell Prabhu. All right, so that's a guy that they use in the Wildcat game. So obviously, the running game, they're pretty good. You look at the receivers, they really only use one receiver in the passing game, but just some receivers to know. They got Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's been their best receiver by far. They got Harrison Wallace III. Then they got Dante Cephas. Now, look, I want to make myself very clear. Penn State, they don't really use the receivers a lot. So now somebody's going to say, so how's Drew Allar been getting those stats? Well, he's been using the tight end, and he's also been using Nicholas Singleton in the passing game. Nicholas Singleton is an underrated back. He's never going to steal the main headlines, but man, is the guy a really good receiving back. And then you obviously look at the tight ends, Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren. That's a pretty good two tight end set that Penn State runs right there. And like I said, defensively, they're getting better a lot in that department. Penn State is winning the games that they're supposed to be winning. Their quarterback has played rather well. I've been impressed with him, throwing no interceptions within the first 6 weeks. Congratulations to him, because that's not an easy feat to do. Now, when you look at Penn State, they're going to Ohio State right now with the #1 ranked defense. They got the #1 scoring offense in the Big Ten. They got the #2 rushing attack in the Big Ten. And like I said, Drew Allar, he hasn't turned over the football yet. And the reason I keep repeating about that is because that's really impressive for a first-time quarterback. You look at a first-time quarterback and you're thinking, he's going to be reckless with the football. But when you watch Drew Allar play, he's careful with the football. And not only is he careful with the football, he's actually willing to go downfield with it. And when he goes downfield with it, he makes good plays happen with a football in his hands. He's not the most mobile guy in the world, but he's been efficient, and that's what Penn State has needed at the quarterback position for years, because Sean Clifford was not good enough for them. Now they have an actual quarterback. But I'll say this though, if Penn State beats Ohio State this Saturday, they are a legitimate college football playoff contender. My thing is, I just don't see that happening, because Ohio State's offense is really good. Their defense is getting better and better. Yeah, you can rave about Penn State's defense. Yeah, you can rave about Penn State's run game, and you can rave about how Drew Allar has played so far. But the problem is, Drew Allar hasn't played in an environment like this. If he has to go against Ohio State while losing, that might be a bigger issue than expected, because he hasn't necessarily had to trail a whole lot, so he doesn't have a lot of experience in that regard. I do think it's going to be a close game throughout, though. I think it's going to be within a touchdown. I think Ohio State, they're going to end up winning the game. I got that being 31-24, because I trust Kyle McCord to get the job done. He's a good quarterback, even though his statistics might not indicate that. But Kyle McCord, he's done his job really effectively for Ohio State. And Ryan Day has always done a good job of beating Penn State. And when you look at Penn State's history against Ohio State, they haven't beaten Ohio State at Ohio State since 2011. I expect that trend to continue, because they've only beaten them once between 2011 and present day. Penn State always gets owned to Ohio State. People like to focus on how Michigan used to get owned to Ohio State in the past, but honestly, the truth was more of Penn State was getting owned more often to Ohio State than Michigan was to Ohio State. I mean, look, those Ohio State teams from the mid-2010s, they were spectacular. There's a reason why Urban Meyer is one of the greatest coaches of all time in the collegiate game. Anyways, though, you watch Penn State, you watch Ohio State, you're thinking this is going to be a game for the ages, but ultimately, Drew Allar is just not going to have the experience in order to beat Ohio State. But I'll say that this is a golden opportunity for Drew Allar to introduce himself to the rest of the country if he ends up winning this game, because he hasn't turned over the football yet, and if he ends up beating Ohio State, it's going to be a pretty big deal. He's actually had a quiet, good season for Penn State. A lot of people are not talking about him. More people need to be talking about him, but let's see what happens. I'm just really intrigued for him, because he has a golden opportunity to prove himself. So that is why Drew Allar will not elevate Penn State to an upset victory against Ohio State, even though he has had a pretty good year for them. In fact, I got Ohio State beating Penn State by the score of 31-24. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I'll be shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That will be for the @Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin Tran and @Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.